There's never going to be an apology for winning. That said,
Never.
I think the Pittsburgh Steelers will take this one and run. Good afternoon, everybody. A good Victory Monday afternoon to you all.
Yeah.
This is, of course, the South Side Beat, as we are Monday through Friday, 3 to 3:30 Eastern, here on DK Pittsburgh Sports, live on YouTube, and then later where podcasts are found. He's Chris Halicke. I'm Corey Crisan. 7-point victory, but the Rams left 7 on the field. There's a ton we could talk about this, but nonetheless, Chris, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 4-2.
They're 4-2
after the bye week. They come out with the win in Los Angeles over the Rams.
Yep. Tomlin now improves to 13-4 after the bye since taking over as Steelers head coach. The comment already of the day was that fire Matt Canada saying, "I've always backed Canada." That was
yeah.
I mean, listen, like the one huge takeaway that I've watched it back a lot, but that "let's go" that Matt Canada let out, there was some pain in that was released. Like, if you really, really watch his face, like, yeah, there's like, he's excited, but there was some like, finally, like, God, there was just something about like, just utter stress relief. Like, yeah, it was, I kind of felt, because really he has been through the ringer, man. And I'm not saying that he's not without criticism. But man, I kind of feel for the guy after a while. Like, I really do. Like, there is still a human element here. He is still just a person trying to do his job.
Yep.
And to see him to see the expression on his face when he gave that "let's go," like, I was just kind of like, you know what? I feel a little good for him now.
Give credit where it's due. Okay.
Yeah.
He called a really good second half. This was more than just about Kenny Pickett turning it on in the fourth quarter. This was more about Kenny Pickett completing all of his passes in the fourth quarter and the team being really good in that fourth quarter that led to that victory over the Rams. Bob, thank you for being a member for 4 months. We appreciate that.
Yes, thank you so much.
It's more than just about all of that. You have to give credit where it's due to two people that I think a lot of us were calling for jobs for: Matt Canada and Dan Moore Jr. I think the offensive line played as best as we've seen them play all season as a collective.
No doubt.
As a
especially
collective.
In the second half, yeah.
The touchdown run from Jaylen Warren was a prime example of what happens when good offensive line play comes into the fray. All three of Dan Moore, Isaac Seumalo, who, by the way, has really turned it up the last few weeks. Seumalo has.
I mean, Seumalo was especially in the run in run blocking, he was a wrecking ball.
Those two and Mason Cole played really well. All game long, they played really well. Now, there were some instances where Chooks was getting beat, but overall, the offensive line play was outstanding by my accord. And that led, obviously, to success in the run game that led to not one, not two, but 3 rushing touchdowns after the Steelers entered this football game with 0 through 5 games this season. The very identity of the offense is the run style, the physical, go after it running game. And they were not great pre-bye. With the adjustments, with the alignments, with all of the changes, so to speak, that were made over the course of the bye week, that net 3 rushing touchdowns, and the Steelers got at least a little bit of their identity back on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, B-Phil coming in and having the rain on everybody's parade, saying it was only 1.5 quarters of a good game stop. Now, to be fair, and to your point, B-Phil, I'm just messing with you, saying you got to rain on everybody's parade, but
he's right.
No, the first half was really rough, especially on the offensive side of the ball. It was rough. They did not find a rhythm on offense. I didn't see, and I mean, it was indicative in the very first series. There was not a commitment to running the ball in the first half. There just wasn't. I think it was like 8 combined carries between Najee and Jalen in the first half. It's like, you're not even trying. I mean, the first series, it was pass. And that was after Najee gained 8 on first down. Like, how do you not get a first down whenever you have 2nd and 2? It just there was not a commitment enough in the first half to run the ball. They got a little bit better about it in the second half, and obviously the TJ interception is what really put the win back in the Steelers' sails, because I mean, even though the defense ended up allowing a touchdown after that, and for the Rams to retake the lead, it still gave the offense an opportunity to get into the red zone, to score, which they weren't doing at all in the first 5 games, was scoring in the red zone. And then that gives the offense confidence to then go out there and try to do something. And then they scored on 2 of their next 3 drives.
They did. Matthew brings up Steelers did a good job of blocking Aaron Donald. They certainly did.
I would say scheming away from Aaron Donald.
And that's what I was going to say, too.
Yeah.
They did a good job of making sure that Aaron Donald was nowhere near the football.
Yeah.
And you're going to beat the LA Rams, and their defense has been okay. But when you have a future Hall of Famer, one of the top arguable 5 best defensive players in the game's history, you just have to find ways to get him out of the game. You have to find ways to get the football, and I'm not making this sound any more complicated than it is. Get the football away from him. Play keep away. That's how you beat the Rams. You play keep away from Aaron Donald. You don't let him get to Kenny Pickett. You don't let him get to Najee Harris. You don't let him get to Jaylen Warren. And the Steelers did exactly that. Robert says the Steelers wide receivers need to take some calm pills. Look, there must be something in the water on the south side, again, with the unsportsmanlikes, because that's what cost Pitt, in a way, on Saturday when I was down in Winston-Salem at Wake Forest with the safety committing 2 unsportsmanlikes on 1 play. And then George Pickens just seemingly couldn't keep his mouth shut over with Ahkello Witherspoon and Yeast, the safety for the Rams, and then Deontay, of all people, got involved on it too. So they got to be careful with those going forward. I know, and George did talk about after the game how, the Rams DB's kind of got in his head a little bit. He was a little, inspired, if you will, to say something, but those penalties could have come back to really bite them. And they showed on the TV broadcast multiple times Mike Tomlin kind of taking Pickens and Deontay over here by the shoulder and saying, "Hey guys, stop," without being too colorful on that.
Yeah, no, it's true. Matthew says, but why can't Canada call plays like he did in the fourth quarter for a whole game? Well, to be fair, there are very few offensive coordinators that bat 1,000 for an entire game. I mean, it doesn't happen.
Correct.
There are going to be periods where the defense adjusts, and you then got to make your own adjustments to then get back ahead of the defense. So even the best game play callers in the game aren't great for 4 quarters. But I think it is kind of interesting, though, that every time the Steelers offense does seem to get going, and this is really going back to last year too, is it doesn't happen until the fourth quarter. Now, I don't know if that's just because there's the actual end line is there. Like, okay, we're running out of time. We've got to do something different. There should be more urgency earlier in the game to do some different things. There should be, instead of trying to be hard-headed or headstrong or whatever, and try to just keep doing what you're doing, and even though it's not working, whatever it is, there should be more urgency to try to make adjustments. I also think that part of it is just the offense really executed very well, and that made Matt Canada's job a lot easier too.
Sure. Let's not pass over this either. The very generous spot of that Kenny Pickett scramble.
Yeah.
On that kept that drive alive, and that sealed the game for the Steelers. The Rams couldn't challenge it because it was outside of the 2-minute, and they didn't have any timeouts left. So
it was a bad spot. I mean, it
was a very generous spot for the Steelers on that one. And look, sometimes the ball goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. And look, I think anybody that watched that game says the Steelers got away with that. But let's not minimize.
But, I mean,
let's not let that minimize anything else the Steelers did, because the Rams had a field goal kicker that missed, extra points, field goals. He left 7 points on the field. The Rams left plenty of opportunities on the field. But at the same time, credit Matt Canada, credit Kenny Pickett, credit the Steelers offense, and credit that defense. Credit the defense. They held Cooper Kupp to basically nothing. They minimized what was a already banged up running game. Not that running game was going to break out for anything, but they didn't let the Rams really get into much of a flow other than the Stafford connection with Puka Nacua. I thought the secondary did a much better job. And by the way, it's no secret because Joey Porter Jr. played more.
Yeah, I think there were two things that I liked seeing, and maybe this will yeah. I mean, I don't know what more has to happen to get Joey Porter Jr. actually starting. But yeah, they started shutting down Nacua a lot more once Porter was in there more often. But really, one other thing that I think really helped the defense in the second half was they finally started clamping down on that running game. Mm-hmm. They were giving up well more than 5 yards a carry in the first half. They did much better in the second half. Of course, TJ's interception, led to the touchdown that made the Rams play from behind for the first time. And they obviously did something different to take the lead back. But the defense did much better job against the run. And that just goes to show you that when they make the offense one-dimensional, when they force them to throw the ball more often and they can't run the ball, this defense can do some really, really good things and can be one of the better defenses in the league. And so that was one thing that really stood out to me in the second half as well. It wasn't just obviously the offense going 3 for 3 in the red zone was huge, but the defense finally clamping down on the running game helped them be much better in the second half.
Robert asks, what grade do you give the Steelers tight ends? This is so hard because when you don't have Pat Freiermuth and you don't have arguably the third best pass catching weapon in your offense, it's hard to adjust to something like that. And Connor Hayward and Darnell Washington simply are not the tight ends that Freiermuth is. Freiermuth is a complete tight end. He can block, he can catch, he can run routes, he can do everything. Hayward is a specialized tight end. Washington is a specialized tight end. Heck, even Rodney Williams is a specialized tight end if you want to go down that far. So I can't really give the tight ends a high grade, but I can't give them a low grade either because it's not like they did anything that cost the Steelers anything major. And by the way, Hayward had the reception that helped set up one of the touchdowns.
Yeah.
So really overall, a good game. I can't really put a letter on it, but I thought they played fine.
No, that they played well. They blocked their assignments. The play that you mentioned where it was the throw to Hayward, it was a play action pass. That might be my favorite play call or even favorite play. I would say play call. I don't know about if it's my favorite play in that I've seen in the playbook, but it was a play that really, if anybody who's like read any of my Chalk Talk stuff or even heard me whenever I start talking X's and O's on here, like I like plays that manipulate the defense and then give the offense multiple options. Obviously, you want to be able to do that all the time, but you want to be able to execute plays so that you can do it just against just about any kind of coverage. And the thing that I loved about that play was you had Sayamalu pull and you had Connor Hayward at the snap also pull. So at that point, it looks to everybody on the defense like it's a run. It's not just Kenny turning around to fake a handoff. It's being blocked as if it's going to be a run. And then Connor does a great job of turning on a dime and going the other way. Kenny gets out there, and then he has Connor Hayward short, and he has George Pickens deep on a corner route. And actually, George was open. If Kenny would have had the gall to do it, he could have put it over the top and hit George, but he took the safe throw, and then Connor got them down inside the 5, so it was still a good play. Really great play designed by Matt Canada and was perfectly executed as well. So it was great to see something like that happen.
In good misdirection here. I like that this call from Hodge here. He says the best play was the Najee run, the misdirection. I really like that play call as well. And again, that is more Dan Moore, more Isaac Seumalo, more Mason Cole, really opening up the holes for Najee and Jalen to run through. I thought the offensive line, again, was absolutely spectacular. Beafield says like a C to the tight ends. If that's average, I'm fine with that. Like I said, I can't really put a letter grade when they didn't win the game for the Steelers, put that in air quotes, and they didn't lose the game in air quotes for the Steelers either.
But I mean, especially if you don't have Pat Freiermuth in there, I mean, you can't ask any of those other 3 guys to try to be Pat.
No,
you just can't. Like every single one of their tight ends has their strengths. You play to your players' strengths. Don't ask Connor Hayward to be Pat Freiermuth. Don't ask Darnell Washington to be Pat Freiermuth. I think that was the thing that made it really difficult for the receivers whenever Deontay was out, is because you're trying to make up for what Deontay does with Allen Robinson and Calvin Austin when neither one of those guys can do anything close to what Deontay does. And I'm not trying to change the subject too much, but now that Deontay's back and you saw the way he ran routes, you're like, God, that's what the Steelers have been missing in the passing game, because man, he made some Rams players look stupid with his route running. The Steelers haven't had that. And so when it comes to the tight ends, it's like you play to their strengths, using Connor Hayward in a way where like on that play we were just talking about, perfect way to use him. When we start talking about, how to use Darnell Washington, how to use Rodney Williams, having them block on the edges and seal off the edges when they're trying to run outside zone or when they're trying to run some sort of gap scheme up the middle. Just win your rep. And that's all they asked them to do. And they did it for the most part.
Matthew says, it seems like the Steelers are relying on Johnson and Pickens a lot, but wish they got Calvin Austin more involved. Here's your snap counts. Okay, real quick. Out of 59 snaps, Kenny and the whole offensive line, obviously all 59. Pickens played 53 out of 59 snaps. Deontay, 39 out of 59. Allen Robinson, 38 out of 59. And then if you were to look at wide receivers, you have to go all the way down to 7 for Calvin Austin out of 59. Yeah. So if it seems that way, it's because it is that way. But I would also argue that Allen Robinson versus Calvin Austin, of course, they're two different wide receivers. But for what they need from that wide receiver 3, so to speak, and maybe this does change with Pat Freiermuth not on the field. Maybe Allen Robinson gets that heavy snap share over Calvin Austin because Pat Freiermuth isn't there for intermediate stuff. But now the Steelers have a well-rounded receiving core with Deontay back. You saw it immediately yesterday. He got the ball, and I think maybe the play of the game for me. You talk about, the Hayward setup, the Najee setup, all those setups.
Just a nice play, yeah.
The Deontay, that big catch and run he had early in the third quarter, to me, that set the tone for the second half. And that showed, Deontay Johnson's back. This is what Deontay Johnson does for the offense. Yeah. So not having Calvin Austin on the field, I think it's partially a product of Deontay being back and partially a product of Pat Freiermuth not being there, because think about it. If you want to put Freiermuth and Allen Robinson on the field, you have two guys that work intermediate to short. You really don't need that. When you have one or the other and then Calvin Austin, you can threaten deep with Calvin and then threaten short with either Freiermuth or Robinson. That's the best I could make an explanation of a lack of a Calvin Austin yesterday.
B-Phil says Deontay needs a touchdown. If he does that, what he did yesterday, every single game, I don't care if he gets in the end zone or not. As long as the Steelers score touchdowns when they get in the red zone, if he helps them get there, that's all that should matter. Like, really, like, I mean, I think Deontay would take that too. Deontay will take what happened yesterday if they can do that every single game, because they're about winning. It's not about stat padding. It's not about anything, because the stats will come if they execute like that. Because I can think of 2 passes in particular where Deontay ran routes that nobody else on the team could run and had big time catches because of it. The one catch you're talking about was one of them, where he did the outside and then, cut back up to the middle. Like, nobody else on the Steelers can run the route like that. And then the one where he had the out route, you know how hard it is to get to win against a cornerback when he has outside leverage on you and you're trying to run an out route. You have any idea how hard that is? It's insanely hard, because a cornerback is outside of you. You're trying to get outside of him. So he already has the advantage on you. You've got to find a way to try to manipulate him enough, because route running isn't just about how sharp you can turn or how fast you can change misdirection. It's also about how you can manipulate the cornerback into freezing him for just a second. And Deontay did this little shimmy where it looked like he was about to turn upfield, and it got the cornerback to turn his hips just a little bit. And as soon as he saw the cornerback start to turn his hips upfield, he immediately cut to the outside. And that was all he needed to get outside leverage on a cornerback that had outside leverage on him. And that was the catch, the out route that he had, that put the ball inside the red zone. I don't remember exactly what touchdown drive it was, but that particular, like if you watch that route run again, it's just gorgeous route running. Like that is exactly how it's done. It's why he's one of the best in football at doing it.
Bob says he looked like Calvin Austin was Gunner for Halloween. Goodness, that punt return, the one he bobbled,
that was
stopped me. It stopped me for a brief moment as well.
Yeah.
John says his first live Steeler game yesterday, easily 70% black and gold in the stands. I believe that 100%. I believe that. Even on TV, you could tell that it was a really heavy weighted Steeler crowd there, as it usually is on the West Coast, by the way.
Yeah.
So really good job by Steeler Nation out there.
Still remember Steeler Nation at the Chargers game when they were playing in that soccer stadium. I think that was when Duck Hodges was the quarterback.
Yeah.
Still remember that, man. That was like, I don't remember what the percentage was, but that was crazy.
A quick shout out, by the way, to Presley Harvin, because if he's healthy for all 17 games this year, he's all pro. Yeah. I mean, he's on an all pro punting level right now. And I know there doesn't need to be too much talk about punting and special teams, but look, I mean, special teams were the difference for the Rams. Mm-hmm. Chris Boswell has been steady Eddie this year. He's been unbelievable this year. Mm-hmm. And Presley Harvin, when healthy, has been one of the best punters in the NFL. So we can talk about special teams all we want, and the Steelers have that down, maybe with the exception of the punt return game right now.
Yeah, no, the special teams has been huge for the Steelers. That's a huge thing because it helps them win the field position game, because that is a part of the game that gets overlooked way too often. John, thank you so much for gifting 10 subscriptions. That's awesome, or 10 memberships. Appreciate that, man.
Thank you, John.
But yeah, it was. With Presley Harvin being able to pin the ball inside the 20, or even, hit those, 40 to 45 yard punts, but get 0 yards in returns, where you're netting exactly what you're punting. I mean, that's exactly what you want. And then Boswell, it's like, dude, just get it to the 35 yard line. I maybe even like just inside the 40, depending on the venue. That shortens the field for the offense. You're then, like, obviously you want the offense to go down, get in the red zone and score, but in case they can't for whatever reason, or in case you get into a defensive slugfest where every single point matters, like when they play the Ravens, just get the ball to the 40 yard line, get the ball to the 38 yard line, because we know that Boswell can give us 3. That's a huge weapon to have in your arsenal, and that's what makes the Ravens so difficult to play, because they have arguably the best kicker of all time. And they can just do that. They can just be like, okay, well, if all else fails, we can get to the 40 yard line. Tucker's going to get us 3. And when the Steelers have that with Boswell, it makes everything easier.
CJ says, we're the Tomlin bashers today. I'm no mathematician, but since last year's bye week, 7-2 plus 4-2, 11-4 since last bye week. Yeah. And this goes with all of the deficiencies that come with having Matt Canada as an offensive coordinator. This comes with a rookie quarterback last year, Kenny Pickett, learning along the way. This comes with a lack of Deontay Johnson, no Pat Freiermuth, no Cam Hayward, all these injuries.
A lot of injuries,
happened, a bad secondary in a lot of spots. The Steelers are 11-4, and they're since that bye week last year. And I think there needs to be some credit given to Mike Tomlin, obviously, but it really is something. And I know you can never apologize for winning. You can never apologize for being 4-2, but it doesn't feel like this team should be 4-2. I think both statements can be validated and correct.
Matthew brings up something interesting that I really want to be devil's advocate here. And this is just because I'm an agent of chaos here.
I'm down for it.
I still think Canada needs to be, and Matthew says, I still think Canada needs to be gone at the end of the season. I agree with you, Matthew, but what would you rather have? Would you rather have Matt Canada gone, or would you rather have the Steelers win the Super Bowl this year, but that means Matt Canada stays for another 3 years? Because if the Steelers win the Super Bowl, Matt Canada ain't going anywhere.
You're mean.
I mean, let's just be real here. I mean, like, what would you rather have? Would you rather have the Steelers, fall short, however they fall short of winning it all, which is obviously their ultimate goal? or would you rather them win the Super Bowl, which probably means that Matt Canada gets another contract? No, I and KG says not going to happen. I agree. I do not think the Steelers are a Super Bowl team right now.
I don't think so either.
I don't. That's why I'm saying that this is it's a hypothetical, and I'm just being mean at this point. So.
Let me tell you something, though. I think what we learned over these last couple of weeks is the AFC is up for grabs. I think other than Kansas City, I don't know what team, Baltimore, but the Steelers just beat them. I can't say Buffalo
Baltimore
with confidence.
Made Detroit look so bad yesterday.
They embarrassed Detroit.
I mean, I was watching that game yesterday. I watched it up until CBS had to cut away or Fox or whoever had to cut away from it because it was getting so out of hand. I mean, it was the if the Ravens play like that, nobody stands a chance. Nobody stands a chance because they looked like a perfect football team. When Lamar Jackson is playing that way, the Ravens are scary.
And the Pats beat the Bills, as a little bit of coin points out. Yeah. I was driving home yesterday from Wake Forest. I covered the Pitt Wake Forest, if you want to call that a football game. Wow, brutal. And I
am not saying the Steelers are winning the Super Bowl, by the way. I am not saying that. I'm just
started
saying
this. Chris.
I know, but I'm saying I'm giving you a hypothetical. I am no soothsayer or fortune teller or anything like that. I'm just saying if it meant if the Steelers won the Super Bowl, but it also meant Matt Canada stayed as offensive coordinator, what would you be all right with that?
Let me tell you this though. Yesterday I was on my way home and I have, satellite radio. I got, the NFL channels. I got all the games ready. And I'm scrolling through on my wheel, and I see Lions, Ravens, and I go, oh, I'm gonna have a good one because I timed my drive out pretty decently that I'd make it home basically by the halftime window of the 1 p.m. games, and I go, oh, I'm gonna have a good, last hour and a half or so drive home. This is gonna be nice, Lamar Jackson, the Lions defense, the Lions are playing good. I got Jahmyr Gibbs in fantasy who did well. And I'm like, this is going to be nice. And then just like that, 28-0. I go, what the hell? What do you do? So I had to switch. I think I was on Bucks and Falcons, which no, thank you. After that, I did not have a good 1 o'clock viewing experience because, I had the Bills game on for a bit too. I had Bills Patriots, which of course nobody was going to think New England was going to beat Buffalo. But my point is, AFC all of a sudden is wide open. Like Kansas City, to me, I think this is a good defense that Mahomes has. And then Baltimore, who Pittsburgh already beat. And I don't know. Jacksonville, we'll find out next week, I guess, with the Jaguars coming to Pittsburgh, if Jacksonville is any sort of legit. Now, I will say Jacksonville's 4-0, I believe, in their last 4. And that includes, I think, 3 wins in 19 days or something like that with the trip to London. Mm-hmm. So, Jacksonville's playing really well, and we'll get to the Jaguars throughout the week. But that's what I learned this weekend is that there's a lot of ball to be played in the AFC, and really, I don't think anybody has separated themselves quite yet.
No, plus, really, Kansas City seems like the team to beat. We kind of knew that going into the season. I think some people were high on Buffalo.
Joe.
Yeah, Pitt was rough. Yeah. I felt for Corey. Okay, you don't have to start. You don't have to.
Wednesday at 6 p.m. on the H2P podcast on this very platform, you will hear me in everything I had to say about really stupid football from the Pitt Panthers. Yeah. Anyway, continue.
To look forward though, Mark says Jax is legit, no doubt. Listen, there's something that the Steelers and Jaguars both have in common is that they were both embarrassed by the Texans. So
right about them.
The Jaguars, I haven't dove too deep. That's my goal for tomorrow, obviously, because I'll do a preview on the Jaguars. So I haven't dove too deep into the Jaguars yet. But just from what I've seen, they're going to be. I mean, I picked them to win the division. To win the AFC South. Now I thought the AFC South was going to be a little less competitive than it's been so far. The Texans are better than I think a lot of people thought. The Titans are not a good football team, but for whatever reason, they seem like one of those any given Sunday teams, like any given Sunday they can show up and all of a sudden they're a formidable opponent. Like,
Well,
you just never know.
Derrick Henry could be traded by the time.
Yeah. And then the
Tennessee
Colts, I was shooting, man. They were right there with the Browns like all game long. So that division all of a sudden doesn't look it looks more competitive than I think people initially thought. I think that people were thought the Jaguars were going to run away with it. And the Jaguars don't look as scary, I think, as people thought early on. So really this is also the start of 3 games at home in a row for the Steelers. And so this is an opportunity for them to really build on this 4-2 start. Like, if they can win 2 of these next 3, preferably if you're going to lose one, you'd rather lose the one to the Packers, just to keep your good record in the conference. Because when we're talking about tiebreakers at the end of the year, the Steelers need to have a good conference record. And as of right now, obviously there are 2 losses. One of them is an NFC team. So right now they're 4-2 overall. And so they're, 4-1 against AFC. I don't think they played in an NFC team. Yeah. So 4-1 against the AFC so far. You'll take that.
Yeah.
100%.
Little bit of coin mentions the Browns getting some help as well, which they did.
Well, NFL officials, man, it's just it seems like it's an issue this year. It's an issue every single year. It really is. It's just, I don't know.
Well, Phil, the reason why the Packers are in trouble is because Jordan Love can't throw the forward pass, and Brian Gutekunst, there's blood on his hands for ruining that franchise as it is right now. Chris, before we get out, let's give some final thoughts. I'll go first.
Yep.
You could be happy about 4-2. You could be happy about beating a really tricky, I would say, NFC team. I would be happy about where the Steelers are at right now. Here's the but. And I don't want to rain on the win. You shouldn't rain on the win. I need to see it consistently.
Oh, yeah.
I still need to see it over the course of 4 quarters and not just 1.5 quarters. I need to see Kenny Pickett turn up in the first quarter, not the fourth quarter. I need to see it. And I think this week's test against the Jaguars, who are playing really good football, considering a lot of circumstances, this is a really important test coming up this week, which we'll get into more throughout the course of this week. By the way, Mike Tomlin tomorrow, as he usually is on Tuesdays, there was no locker room or anything today. The Steelers had today completely off.
Yeah. Final thought for me was, again, 3 for 3 in the 3 for 3 in the red zone. This was a team that was god awful in the red zone heading into the game. This was a main point of emphasis for this team coming out of last season, going into this offseason. They needed to get better in the red zone. For the first 5 games, they were significantly worse. To see them go 3 for 3 and to need a minimal amount of plays. I mean, they didn't even need a lot of plays inside the 20 to punch the ball into the red zone. I mean, they needed 3 plays on the first one. They needed 2 on the second, and I think they only needed 2 on the third. So they were able to punch the ball into the red zone pretty quickly all 3 times. That is, and a lot of it came down to execution. A lot of it came down to play calling. And to give a quick little plug, there's going to be a breakdown of that in my Chalk Talk for today, which is coming out later today. Not too much longer, probably just in another few hours or so. That'll be out where I kind of take a closer look at some of the things that stood out to me about why they were so successful in the red zone. If they can continue to do that, if they can continue to not only execute the plays, but to call things that kind of go against the things that we've been complaining about this offense, this could be an offense that is good enough to get this team at least into the playoff discussion for sure. And at 4-2, they're heading in that direction as of right now.
You got to be in position. All that matters is winning. And I think all that Mike Tomlin would say is that all that matters is winning. They don't care how they do it, and they don't care about style points, and they don't care about 400 yards of offense and scoring 30 points a game.
They definitely don't care about 400 yards of offense because it hasn't happened in 53 games.
They don't care about any of that. All they care about is how they win the game on Sundays. And again, I reiterate, since that 2022 bye week last year, Pittsburgh is 11-4, and they are 4-2 now in this 2023 season in what is suddenly a wide open AFC. He's Chris. I'm Corey. We'll do this again tomorrow on Tuesday after Mike Tomlin talks on a Tomlin Tuesday. Thank you all for tuning in on Victory Monday. Talk to you tomorrow. Peace out, everybody.